In my opinion, one of the biggest downsides of trading card games is the lack of accessibility. And when I say lack of accessibility, I'm not referring to price or card availability, but rather a means of playing them digitally. While TCGs have become more mainstream over the years, the hobby is still pretty inaccessible to an extent, as a lot of parts of the world don't have a physical trading card game scene, making digital play the only way to access them. Now, not every TCG has this downside, as we have games like Master Duel for Yu-gi-Oh, Arena for Magic, Worlds Beyond for Shadowverse, Dear Days for Card5 Vanguard, and so on. However, a lot of card games, especially a lot of the newer ones, tend to be physical only, and I get it. Making a digital client for a game is not easy, and I don't want this video to come off as me complaining, but rather to emphasize how having a digital version of a card game can help boost a game's fan base / community. I know for a fact that if I never came across games like Legacy of the Duelist or Master Duel, I probably would have never decided to start playing TCGs physically. With all that being said, I want to use this video to give a shout out as well as a quick review of Felt Table. But before we begin, I'm Gridmaster, and if this is your first time here, thanks for stopping by and welcome aboard. Felt Table is an online fan-made TCG simulator that houses games like Grand Archive, Flesh and Blood, Lorcana, One Piece, Gundam, and also Star Wars Unlimited. I only found out about it very recently, and wow, this is such a hidden gem in the TCG community, and I'm surprised I haven't seen more content creators cover this. The way Felt Table works is that you go to the website, that being Felt Table of course, and you can choose any of the games I mentioned that you want to play, and you can select decks you want to play with and play against, and just start getting funky and having a good flipping time. While you can only play against computers, it's still an incredibly fun experience. For each game I mentioned, you can choose to start slow and steady by using the pre-constructed starter decks that are already on the site, or if you already know how to play the games that are already on the site, you can start building all sorts of decks that you want to play and go up against. And the deck building process is very convenient. Rather than building decks from scratch, you can find a deck list that you want to try online and simply copy and paste it into the deck builder section. It's incredibly easy and straightforward. Before I continue, I need to give a huge props to the developer for putting Flesh and Blood onto the site. I'm not even a Flesh and Blood fan, but Flesh and Blood is by far one of the most competitive, if not the most competitive TCG on the market right now. And because of the premise behind Flesh and Blood, that being playing against your opponent in the flesh / in person, I never imagined the developers behind the game would ever bother making a digital version of the game, as that could pretty much contradict the entire premise of what the game stood / stands for. However, thanks to Felt Table, the game has finally been made accessible to people wanting to play the game digitally, and they even have a how to play section for Flesh and Blood, which is good because I tried playing with one of the starter decks and it felt like rocket science, so I'm definitely going to be hopping onto the how to play section. Another thing I like about Felt Table is that it's helpful for getting in practice and improving. I mentioned in my previous video that I had been able to get in a lot of practice with my newly built Water Astra Diana deck. Please check the video out if you haven't already. In my Grand Archive review, one of the few critiques I gave was how steep the game's learning curve was. However, I believe this can actually help with that because in my opinion, going up against a computer is a more reliable way of learning a game than going up against a human opponent. Some other games they have are Lorcana, Gundam, One Piece, and Star Wars Unlimited. The Star Wars TCG is a game that's piqued my interest for some time, but I always avoided it for two main reasons. The first being that I'm not a Star Wars fan in general, and the second, that being the most important reason, is that the game has rotation, which is the reason why I dropped Lorcana in. So the fact that both games are here and I can play with any card I want is a big win. I'll wrap up this review by highlighting some more pros I have and highlighting just a few cons I have. Some more pros I have are the fact that, and I know a lot of you watching are gonna make fun of me for this, but there is a redo / undo button. Look, I know a lot of you are going to look at me as an amateur for this, but I have to say it as it is. Since the moment I played my first ever digital TCG sim, that being Yu-gi-Oh Dual Generations, I've always wanted to have a function that allowed you to essentially control / command Z whenever you made a mistake, as it can be really frustrating when you're in a situation where you've made a mistake, such as accidentally pressing the wrong button or having a momentary distraction that causes you to make a wrong move and so on. So having the undo option is a major plus for me. Another pro I have is the presentation. Despite being fan-made, the presentation of this simulator is great, and the fact it's fully automated makes it even better. I imagine that this feature is present for the other games on Felt Table, but I like the option that allows you to have different play mats. The animations are smooth and the sound design is pretty good as well. Thanks to Felt Table, I can finally try out all sorts of decks without having to invest or proxy, which in turn saves me a lot of time and money. I know for a fact that I'm not going to be making proxies for Grand Archive to the extent that I used to, and I'm 1000% never making a full proxy deck anymore. There are more pros I have with Felt Table, but just to prevent the video from dragging out, I'll go over one more, and that is the accessibility that this project has provided. All you need to play TCGs on Felt Table is an internet connection. You don't need high-end hardware, no accounts, no subscriptions or anything of the sort. All you need is a device that can connect to the internet, and just like that, the hobby of trading cards has become increasingly more accessible. Felt Table works on both PC as well as mobile devices, but I would recommend playing on a device with a decent sized screen. As I mentioned earlier, there are a few nitpicks I have with Felt Table. The first one being that there are a handful of bugs. While I don't know about the other games on Felt Table, I have encountered a handful of bugs while playing Grand Archive. However, given the scope of this project, I would be shocked if there were no bugs at all. And even then, the developer behind Felt Table is constantly at work when it comes to fixing the bugs. And some of the bugs I've encountered in my short time of playing Grand Archive on Felt Table have already been fixed. And there's even a feature on the site that allows you to report bugs, and the developer is 100% paying attention to the reports, which makes me appreciate this project even more. My final nitpick is that some cards have been released in other sets that aren't available as of the recording of this video. But even then, this issue is already being worked on as well, because some of the cards that were not available when I started playing have been made available as of now. Again, these nitpicks I've mentioned are just that, nitpicks, and are by no means a big deal at all. And yeah, that's pretty much it. If you made it to the end of this video, I really appreciate it. I would like to thank the developer of Felt Table, as this project is such an amazing contribution to the hobby of trading card games, and I can only imagine how difficult a project like this must be and how difficult it is to keep running. You've done a phenomenal job, and thank you. And if by any chance in the near future you plan on adding a new TCG to the Felt Table, please add Echoes of Astra and maybe Battle Spirit Saga. Once again, thank you to the developer of Felt Table, and I'd like to thank those who watched this video to the end. Before I close off, I'd like to plug my Instagram. I make content for Grand Archive and Battle Spirits, and I'll be posting more content soon enough. See you all in the next video, and God bless you, my fellow masters.